Have you ever thought of moving out of the country? Maybe you or a friend or family member. A lot of people have for any of various reasons, every once in a while, especially depending on who gets elected in any given election. A lot of celebrities threaten to do that. Some follow up, some don't. But it's not just celebrities. Now, I have a friend, a fellow traveler, if you will, fellow broadcaster, who is making the big move out of the good old US of A. And we're here to talk about it from Kansas City, John Grayson. John, thanks for joining in.
Jim, it's always a pleasure to hear your voice. How's everything going?
Pretty good. I mean, from my perspective here, I'm not thinking of leaving the country anytime soon, but I want to talk with you about it.
Sure.
Let me ask you, first of all, the most obvious question. Where are you going and why are you going there?
Yeah, where we're going is the easy part. The city of Porto is in the northern half of Portugal. It's right on the water. It's right on the Atlantic Ocean. And it's one of the most beautiful cities. In fact, it's the most beautiful city I've ever stepped into in my life. So just a few months ago, my wife and I decided we were going to make that home. And as far as why, you mentioned it kind of in the intro a little bit about the election and about all the celebrities who say, oh, if this guy gets elected, I'm leaving the country.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that because we made every effort, even though that was why. I don't trust this country anymore. I can't. Knowing that enough people thought that this was a good idea.
Yeah.
And it's not so much about Trump. I mean, he's dangerous and he's going to do a lot of stupid things. And he's already done a lot of stupid things. But it's not about him. It's about the people that put him where he is. And if that many of the people that I live around believe that that's a good idea, I can't stay here. So
I can relate, believe me.
Right. Well, and so at that point, it was just a matter of finding our place. And we got very lucky. And it wasn't through lack of effort either. I have to credit my wife here. She is so methodical and so on board with this, which, I mean, my crazy idea, but she was immediately right there with me and said, okay, well, then all we need to do is figure out where we're going.
Yeah.
And she said about it, we had a number of options that we kind of kept narrowing down, and then came to Portugal because it's so easy to immigrate there.
Really?
It's not terribly expensive. Yeah. They have been, over the last 20 years or so, they have lagged behind the EU in economic growth. And some of that was cultural and some of it was just their position in the world.
Yeah.
But they found themselves with not a recession necessarily, but just not with an economy that was growing. So what they did is the guy who was the prime minister at the time, along with the mayor of Porto, decided, okay, we are going to make a big push to bring in more immigrants and bring in more money and grow our tax base. And it worked. So they have been very friendly to the immigrant community. There's a tremendous American expat community over there already. Mm-hmm. And it's such a great place. I wish I could elucidate on exactly how easy life is there, how beautiful the place is, and just how perfect it was as soon as we got off the bus. We were only planning on spending 5 days there. We ended up spending 8.
Wow.
We just kept extending because we didn't want to leave.
Now, I have to ask you about some of the hoops you've obviously had to jump through. You say it was pretty easy, relatively speaking. Would you say it's easier than, say, getting into Canada or Mexico or the UK?
Depends on where you go. I will say that another thing that Portugal has to recommend it is that the cost of living is very low compared to Canada, compared to some of the Central American countries even. The cost of housing, the cost of food, everything is so low there.
Yeah.
Because they've been economically stagnant for a while.
Right.
So that kind of works in our favor. But I heard just recently that there are some smaller communities in Canada, like Sudbury, Ontario, places like that where they will allow you now as an American, if you want to leave the country, you can go there with nothing more than a passport. You don't even need a visa. They will
Really?
let you stay as long as you're there and paying taxes in these smaller communities for exactly the same reason. Because we're talking about places that have a population of maybe 5,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
but if they can bring in another 10,000, American immigrants, and all of a sudden have all this extra money coming in, it's going to do the community a great service.
Now, you're a commentator like I am, and you obviously kind of lean a bit leftish, liberal, libertarian, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Let me ask you about your take on the big issues here. I mean, how bad, realistically, do you think it can get here?
Oh, well, we already know that we have a president who is ignoring the courts,
Yeah.
and that can't happen. I mean, that's a dictatorship. That is a single figurehead
Mm-hmm.
deciding that he is going to be the only voice that makes any decisions. Now,
Yeah.
the courts are pushing back, and so some of that is happening procedurally. But if you look at the rise of fascism in Italy, if you look at the rise of the far right in Germany, I
Yeah.
mean, it mirrors exactly the same things that he's doing. Jim, we deported an American citizen who was born here.
Right.
That's insane. I mean, that's crazy levels. So he's made it his sort of stock in trade to say, you're never going to know what I'm going to do next, because everything you think is so crazy, I would never do that. That's what I'm going to do.
Well, that to me is one of the worst things about it, at least from a business standpoint, is that you've got all these businesses out here who, they need to plan accordingly. They need to know what this guy is going to do, and if he just keeps them guessing, they're not going to know how to handle it.
Exactly, and the stock market's showing exactly that.
Yeah.
I mean, we were at close to 45,000 on the Dow in January of this year. We're now at 42, up from 40, and it's still kind of, it's tenuous. And you look at it, I mean, you look at the chart, and every time he says the word tariff, the Dow loses 500 points.
Yeah. So realistically, you don't think it's just a matter of just waiting it out until he dies or until somebody else gets in?
No, and honestly, I mean, going back to what I said earlier, it's not even so much to me about him. It's about the people that I live around, and they scare me now.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they knew. I mean, I don't buy this, we voted for Trump, but we didn't know he was going to be like, yes, you did.
Yeah.
You had 40 years of this. You knew exactly what he was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, frankly, racism. I mean, they were pissed that a black guy got elected,
Yeah.
and now they were upset that a black woman was running, and there was no way they were. And for that anger, that's what I can't deal with. Honestly, I mean, that was what led me down this path in the first place, is that at every opportunity, when we've had the opportunity to choose, nonviolence and peacefulness over violence and anger, we have chosen violence and anger, and that's not a place I want to live.
Yeah, well, we saw what happened when Biden actually got in. We saw what happened on the steps
January
of the
6th.
Capitol. Yeah,
Right.
Exactly. And now they're giving money to one of the women who was part of the insurgents.
Right.
Ashley Babbitt, she died whilst trying to storm the Capitol. She was shot by a cop, if I recall correctly. And they
Yes.
want to give money to her family. They want to give $5 million. This from a government who claims that they don't have enough money to keep Medicaid and the food stamp program going.
Right, but we can have billions of dollars worth of a parade for nothing, and we can just spend money like it isn't even there. I mean, while they're talking and giving lip service to efficiency and cutting the budget, and it's more craziness, because they know that the people that voted for him don't know any better.
Yeah.
They believe it because he says it, and they don't know, and they have no desire to fact check.
Trump is really a symptom. He's not really the problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
I believe that wholeheartedly. Absolutely.
Now, John, I have to ask it, and we're getting into some scary territory. I realize that, but you are Jewish, right?
Yes.
How much of a factor is that in making this decision?
It is absolutely a factor. Go do the math here. How many greats are we? My great-grandfather left the Ukraine in 1936
Yeah.
and came here because he saw it coming.
Mm-hmm.
He knew what was coming. And had he not, the village that we came from, the village that my family emigrated from, is gone. It's gone, Jim. It doesn't exist anymore. The Nazis came through in 1941 and they destroyed it.
Yeah.
And so had he not left, had he not made that decision to go, I would not be here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it had a lot to do with that.
Let me ask you about some of the hoops you've had to jump through. What about the language? Have you been working on polishing your conversational Portuguese?
I have indeed. The good news is, what makes it easy for me is that I had a little bit of it when I was a teenager. I lived in Tampa, and we had a lot of Brazilian tourists come in.
Right, Brazil.
And they speak a different version of Portuguese. It's like American English versus British English.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very close, and you can get by, but a lot of the idioms don't work from one to the other.
Yeah.
So I've had to sort of relearn a lot, and we've been taking language courses online. We're going to take them in person when we get over there, but that's so many people who are there speak English that it is rarely a hindrance. In the entire time that we were there, I only ran into 2 people who spoke no English whatsoever, and we were able to get by. One was an Uber driver, and another one was a kid who worked at a mailboxes, etc. Yes, they have them there. And in both cases, we were able to get by using Google Translate.
Yeah, I understand that English in a lot of places, even in parts of Asia, has become, at least in the business community, has become the lingua franca.
Yes,
of the business
so standard.
class. Yeah. What about the citizenship question? How is that going to work?
That's something we're still wrestling with, because the good news is we have 5 years. The way that I believe it's called the D7 visa, which is what we're getting, the way that works is that you have it for 3 years, and then you can do an automatic re-up as long as you haven't gotten yourself arrested or haven't cheated on your taxes or anything like that. Then they automatically renew you for a year and then another year. So we have 5 years to be able to figure all of that out before we get our final residency.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't know, and this may play into it, we're not really sure all the ramifications yet of getting Portuguese citizenship if that's the way we decide to go.
Okay.
But people are under the impression that if you give up your U.S. citizenship, you are giving up your Social Security, and that is not true.
Really?
You can
okay.
still, yes.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, you paid in. So as long as you fill out all the proper paperwork and do everything else right, provided Trump doesn't do something stupid, then yes, you still collect your Social Security. I have sort of officially retired from radio.
Okay.
And at my age, I'm also able to collect my pension from our union, which is nice.
Yeah.
So with all of those things, and with the low cost of living over there and everything else, we were able to make this work. And
now you do have family. Yeah, you do have family who are staying behind here. How have they reacted to all this?
They've been very supportive. Our children, and between Jen and I, we have 4 of them, all 4 boys, and they're all grown and out and doing very well for themselves. And a couple of them have said, hey, listen, we are not in a position right now to follow you. Right. But if things get bad, can we? And my answer was absolutely. We will find a room, and we'll find a way to make everybody accommodated. If you guys get into a position where you need to leave, if it's so bad that you've got to get out, we can take care of you.
Yeah, realistically, could you ever see yourself moving back?
No. I just honestly have no interest.
Okay.
No matter what happens here now. And what I've been saying, even though I mentioned the expat community a little while ago, I'm not moving to Portugal to be an American living in Portugal. I think the people who leave the country and then come back are the ones who left on the wrong terms. They went on vacation
Mm-hmm.
and had a great time
Yeah.
and thought, ooh, I would like to live the rest of my life on vacation. I don't want to have people over there serve me.
Yeah.
I want to go be a part of what I see there. So I don't plan on hanging around a lot. I mean, will I talk to the other Americans who are there to get tips from them on how to, manage the systems and how trash pickup works and all of that? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't. I was so sort of smitten by the people that we met there who grew up there that I wish to be more like them.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to do.
Well, let me ask you, John, because I know a lot of people who hear this are going to be kind of scorning you, and they're going to say things like, well, why do you want to leave your country? Why don't you stay here and fight it out with the rest of us?
I'm old.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a silly answer, but really.
Revolution is a young man's game.
It is. There is something to be said for that. I mean, I'm 55.
Yeah.
And I realize that's, in the grand scheme of things, that's not that old.
No.
But fight for what? And fight for whom?
Yeah.
I need to, and by the way, as far as the scorn goes, Jim, I've been doing talk radio since I was 19 years old. Mm-hmm. If I couldn't handle scorn, I would have been in the wrong business. So, when it comes to fighting, no matter win or lose, and no matter what happens in the next election, I'm still living around 40% of the United States population that is racist, angry, bitter, and violent. And I can't live my life that way. I have to live for me.
I really believe that this country, our country here, is in a technical state of civil war right now.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Okay, let me ask you, for folks who are listening to this and thinking, well, maybe that's something we should consider, what kind of advice do you give the aspiring expatriates who want to follow in your footsteps?
Absolutely. Do your research, travel, go to the place, make sure that it is honestly what you're looking for. And the great thing, I mean, the internet has a lot to be angry about. Social media is part of what's gotten us to this point. However, social media is also very, very valuable when it comes to finding other people who have already made that move and have made the mistakes and have done things that they would do differently had they known more. And they put videos up on YouTube and TikTok and all of these different platforms telling you how to do it. I would say utilize that and find people who have moved and stayed and listen to what they say, and find people who have moved and then moved back and listen to what they say. I mean, really, just there's no limit to the amount of information that's out there and available largely for free. Research it and find your place. Porto specifically is very, very temperate. The hottest it ever gets is about 85, and the coldest it ever gets is about 20.
Sounds like a Mediterranean climate.
Yes, and it's and that's perfect for me. I don't do well in the heat. I lived in Florida for 25 years and hated every single day of it.
Wow.
So that's a small consideration, but it's a consideration. Could I have moved to Costa Rica? Sure, but I would have been miserable. Yeah. So be who you are, be true to who you are, and make sure that the place you're going is a place that you really, truly want to be.
Yeah. One final question for you, John. Do you live anywhere near, you mentioned you live near the ocean. Are you anywhere near the place where they have the 100-foot waves?
It's not far. Yes, it's about a 40-minute train ride down the coast south toward Lisbon. And I'm well aware of that. We rode the train by some of the Atlantic beaches, and they were gorgeous. We didn't see that particular cove, but I'm looking forward to going as soon as we get there.
That would scare the hell out of me, but it's just so fascinating, the idea of it.
Yes.
All right, John Grayson, thanks again. Soon to be an expatriate, but I do sincerely hope you'll stay in touch, and let us know how things are going for you.
For sure, absolutely. And Jim, as I said before, it's always a pleasure to hear your voice.
Thank you to John Grayson. More conversation and your calls coming up. The Resistance with me, Jim Walsh, at urlradio.net.